Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Crew Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies, the future of sports medicine. If you want to find out more about Replenishing Care, you can go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner. It'll take you right there. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my other co-host. He is an immortal basketball legend in Indiana, as he is a part of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley.
This is getting ridiculous. You're setting standards I'm not ever going to be able to live up to. I'm not going to live up to the basic ones.
Hey, damn it, you're the one that fought for it for 3 decades, so just go with it.
There you go. Rock and roll. How you doing this morning, Mike?
I'm doing great because I got to watch Hard Knocks with the Cleveland Browns again.
Oh,
and I'll tell you, from watching Hard Knocks, I'm thinking maybe Tyrod Taylor should just be the head coach of the team.
Yeah, he and Jarvis Landry seem to be the only two with any kind of passion and brains about the whole operation there. I mean, you know, some of the suggestions that Tyrod Taylor has made to the team, some of the coaches look at him like, damn, that's a good idea about filming practice. Yeah, I mean,
Hugh Jackson looks lost in this show.
He looks totally lost. I mean, if I was the brass of the Cleveland Browns right now and watching this, I'd be a little embarrassed, especially from a team or coach that's gone 1-31 with this franchise, and 2, what product is being put on television. Now, you gotta. You know, there's 3 sides to every story. There's really your side, my side, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. We don't know what kind of editing HBO is doing.
Oh, I guarantee you they're doing editing.
Yeah, I guarantee they're doing editing, but I don't think they'd be editing out to make Hugh Jackson look like the bumbling goofball that he's coming out to be on this show. I mean,
yeah, this is like a Martin and Lewis production, and he's Jerry Lewis in the old 1950s movie about the coach who's a bumbling idiot.
Yeah, it's like, God, I don't know where to go with this. I mean, it's kind of turning into more of a soap opera than it is really a training camp for a football team. I mean, there seems to be no sense of urgency on this football team at all, other than really Jarvis Landry exploding a couple times now in practice. And, you know, some of the methodology that they're using to discipline or deal with players, I give them credit for one thing. When Corey Coleman came in crying and pissing and moaning about being demoted to the number 2 team, the next day he was traded to Buffalo. Maybe.
Yeah, but, you know, the great thing about Corey Coleman that we learned is he someday will probably be a really successful financial consultant for people or financial advisor because, I mean, come on, it's so intelligent, don't you think, to own 1,000 pairs of shoes totaling probably what? A lot of money. So you're looking at like 1,000 shoes, probably at an average price of $250 to $300 a pop. So he obviously knows how to take care of his money for when he retires.
Yeah, you looked at it. It's funny because my wife and I were watching the show, and the first thing she looked at me and said, "What do you?" This is my wife speaking now, who owns probably close to 1,000 pair of shoes, but not at $300 a pair. And she turns around, and she doesn't really own that many shoes. I'm being facetious there. I'll get smacked in the back of the head by one of them in a minute here. But it's like, okay, you make a decision here. Do you spend $300 on a pair of shoes, or do you go spend $300 and buy 2 or 3 shares of stock of some company and plan for the future? And but you see, this is a mistake that a lot of these young kids make without proper guidance and counseling. And actually, we take it back to our interview with Rashad McCants. It kind of bodes well into his proposal for a sports degree, so to speak, where kids are taught, you know, don't buy for now, buy for later. But, yeah, it's not good financial planning because those shoes are not going to be worth much down the road. He'll end up selling a bunch of them on eBay for about half that price, and, you know, we'll never wear them. So, I don't know where you'd want to go. I don't think I'd be real proud of showing everybody my 1,000 pair of Nike Jordan shoe collection.
Yeah, and then we've got Antonio Callaway. I think that's his name, right?
I don't get that deal.
I mean, it's just he gets busted, you know, with a roach in his car. He doesn't tell the team, And, I mean, I would like to know if the editing is why everybody's asking what's wrong or something, because he goes the entire practice with not saying a word. He goes in to meet the GM and the head coach, of course, the bewildered Hugh Jackson.
But they found out on their own. He didn't go to tell them that.
That's what I mean. He goes into them after they found out on their own, and he's kept it from them. And instead of being, like, outraged, which I would have been, they basically listened to his story. Hugh Jackson says, I believe you, son. And no, nobody believes that story. That story is complete BS. I mean, really, Hugh Jackson, this entire 2 series so far, has looked like a bewildered man who was just told a wild, unfathomable government secret. And it's just mind-blowing to me that he would sit there and tell him that I'll believe you this time, just don't do this to me again. Because if he does it to him again, Hugh's going to do the same thing. And this is why Hugh's 1-31. He has no backbone. He wants to be everybody's friend. He wants everybody to like him. And it's just, this is an absolute joke. And then on top of it, they punish him by making him play every play offensively of the game. Why don't you make him play defensively too then? I mean, the thing is, to me, you make him dress and you don't let him play, and you let guys that, don't lie to you, that have worked their ass off for the last 2 weeks, try to see if they can take his spot.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I got no point of that whatsoever, saying we're going to make you play every play. Okay, first off, I learned, there's a Twitter page called WTF Facts, and what the facts, okay, and it said that, I think I sent this to you on text, that the average amount of actual playing time in a 3-hour professional football game is a little under 11 minutes, where there's actually contact, movement, and physical play going on. The rest of it is play calling, dead ball time, fouls, or huddles or whatever, half times and everything, but less than 10 minutes. So and at the end of the game, this guy's acting like he's winded and dying. Now, this is a professional athlete who gets paid to do nothing but condition and train all year round, right?
Yeah, and the offense is only on the field for about half that time, so you're looking at 6 minutes of running around.
Yeah. And so it's just like, but then to play him the whole time, I think that's punishment. If I was a rookie trying to make a team and trying to earn a starting spot, I'd say, God, please don't ever take me out. I want to play. Sure.
Yeah, so the only thing they did was by keeping him in is keep the guys out that are trying to make the team.
Right. Yeah, there's kids out there busting their butt who are keeping their nose clean for the franchise and the organization, who, are trying to make the team. And I'd say, guess what? Callie, you don't get to play. You sit. You just sit. You're sitting for the first game for sure, and maybe into the second game if you don't impress me in practice. You got to go back to practice and earn your spot back, not in the game. So
yeah, and then we get Tyrod Taylor, who should be the coach of this team. I mean, and the reason I say that is when he comes up with the effort to combat laziness in practice by suggesting putting a rolling camera on players during practice and highlight the laziness during a team-wide film session, I mean, Hugh Jackson looks like he just discovered fire or something. I mean, it's an absolute joke. I mean, Hugh has no clue what he's doing. I mean, this is obvious what you do when players are lazy in practice. I mean, to me, what's obvious to do, if everybody's lazy in practice, is just stop practice and cut one guy.
Yeah. Just send one home right on the spot. Say, that's it. You're done. And what just amazes me is how lack of a sense of urgency this football team seems to have. I mean, Henley, the offensive coordinator, is it Hanley or Henley?
Todd Haley, and he's the best part of the show. He's funnier than hell.
He's becoming the best part, but mostly because
he's going to make himself the head coach just by being the main guy in the show that's not a dipshit. I mean, when he does the impression of the tight end wandering around like a rooster begging to be sold off, I mean, that's the best 8 seconds of television we've seen all week.
Yeah, I mean, but he's winning it through his comedy shtick as much as anything. But this is a team that I think we have a new guest.
We got your little baby brother from Canada, Likas Weese, joining the show as he's late. How you doing, Lucas?
No, he's not late. It was a misunderstanding.
It wasn't a misunderstanding because we all said what time it was. It was Steve Risley screwed it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I screwed it up by trying to be funny. Hey, Lucas, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, great guys. Sorry for the mishap. Great to be,
That's okay. Don't worry about
to be on the show today.
We are lambasting the Cleveland Browns and Hard Knocks right now, so just jump right in with your thoughts and comments. Because Mike
and the Devin Kajusti thing, I think, has apology or has a possibility. It's a great underdog story, and the guy played great against the Giants. He's going to get cut, but they'll probably keep him around to the last cuts just for dramatic purposes. But he communicates with his father via bird whistle, which I find really annoying, by the way. I just do. I mean, I don't care. To me, it's annoying as hell. I mean, shut up, Dad. Just scream his name. Like a normal dad. You don't have to sit there and bird whistle. And my question is, did this bird whistle just come around now? Or are they just doing it for the show? Maybe somebody at HBO said, why don't you bird whistle? And the other thing that I do like from Todd Haley, once again, was where he rails on Carl Nesbitt's parents for naming him Carl. And then he has a conversation with a guy upside down in some unexplained metal contraption. And then the other thing I do like is this also. Nassib was called out on his compound interest speech where, you can't find 10% interest anywhere, Carl, which is true, which drove me nuts last week, and I forgot to bring it up. But he's talking about putting the money in the bank, you get 10% interest. I don't know of any bank that gives you 10% interest on your savings account.
You can probably find programs where you get 10% return on your investment, but not just by putting it in a simple savings account.
But not a savings account. You get
you might be able to find a mutual fund or a brokerage firm that can put a stock package together for you and get you 10% ROI. But you're not going to do that just putting all your money into a savings account in a bank and expect to make 10% a year on that money. That won't happen.
Well, and then you get Greg Williams, who is just certifiably insane. You can tell he's a defensive coordinator. And you can tell why he's been successful, because that dude's nuts, and these guys are probably afraid if they don't play well, he's liable to set them on fire or something.
Yeah, God. And, of course, wasn't he the defensive coordinator at New Orleans with Bounty?
Don't bring up the lies, because that was proven to be not true. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, you're right. He's just nuts.
Look into it. I mean, there was a lot of stuff there that didn't add up. But I think the way Greg Williams acts made it easier to convict him.
Hey, Lucas, has he thought about the bounty hunting thing with the Saints?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. You know that happened.
No, it didn't.
Come on, Mike.
It was proven it didn't happen.
Some form of that happened, Mike. Some form of that happened. I don't want to get off a tangent on that debate because we're going to light your candle right now, and you're going to go 8 poop bananas on this thing, and I don't want that because we got to keep dissecting the Cleveland Browns right now. But some form of that happened.
Sure it did.
Thank you for being a sport and admitting it. See, there you go. We have it on tape.
Sure it did.
He admitted that it did. See, he admitted it again. Anyway, the Cleveland Browns are not a football program that shows any concern at this point about being 1-31. They don't seem to have any intensity involved in it, and I don't think anything's changing until they clear their coaching staff and bring somebody in with a little bit more sense of urgency. The one thing I'm seeing, Mike, and I'll leave it to you because you're the quarterback's guru here, is after the first week, and it's the first week, and I know they're playing against subpar players, but Baker Mayfield looked pretty darn impressive. Tyrod Taylor looked impressive. I mean, Taylor was 5 for 5, wasn't he, on the drive he did, ran him right down to a touchdown. But you got to look at this in terms of where this team sits right now, where they are at this point, and should they just make the move to go with Baker Mayfield right now? Mike, what do you think of that?
I'm all right with him starting Taylor, just because I think that this entire coaching staff is probably gone by the bye week. I think Tyrod Taylor's a good quarterback. I may be one of the few people to do. But I think in the end, you're going to have to play Mayfield because he's a number one guy. You got to find out what you got. And in the long run, if you want to do more than go 8-8, you got to go with Baker.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I just, if this is a team that, needed to come out of the gate fast because the second half, the back half of the season is loaded, backloaded, and they got to play tough teams in the end. You can take some time to develop Mayfield. But they're facing nothing this year. If they win 4 games, I think that's going to be a strength to them. 5 games, maybe, but I don't know that I don't know. I don't know what the risk reward there is of playing Mayfield. Again, I'll leave that to you guys that are coaches, but PR wise, because they're going to need to fill seats somehow. They're going to fill it by putting a winning product on the field and start building some PR because they don't have the Cleveland Cavaliers to fall back on anymore in that city. And I think Mayfield did not hurt himself at all in the first game. He looked strong. His leadership in the huddle, from what they showed, and mic'd up seemed strong. He seemed confident, poised, stepping up in the pocket well, not taking stupid running opportunities, but smart ones. I think you just got to look at it and say, Tyrod's a great quarterback to have in our staff, but we've got to give Baker a shot, see if he can take us right from the beginning of his career. In my opinion.
Lucas?
My opinion is that Baker Mayfield should start week 1. I'm going to go that far. I think this guy is a gamer.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that I understand why they would start Tyrod Taylor.
No, yeah.
Obviously.
This is not enough.
And Tyrod Taylor looked better in the preseason game, too. You got to go with that, too.
No, yeah.
For sure. And I think they will start with Tyrod, but I just think the way Baker Mayfield is, this guy was a real star player in college. I think he already looks great already. I would start him week 1. But I agree with both of you. I think the Browns, and as we've seen in these Hard Knocks episodes, they just don't have the winning culture. They don't. And it starts with the coaching. The coaching needs to be gone. And there needs to be a whole new swift change and try to develop that winning mentality. And I just don't think that this team right now is that. I agree with you, Steve. I think 4 or 5 wins. They'll be, they're not going to get. They're going to win some games, but they're not going to be competing for a playoff spot.
No. And think about back. One last thing on Baker Mayfield. Here's a 2-time walk-on at Texas Tech, I think, and then at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The total blue-collar kid in a total blue-collar city. And, this is a team, this is a city screaming for a hero, especially a football hero after all the failures that they've had at quarterback. Not all because of the quarterbacks they drafted. Some were, Johnny Manziel. But some of them were great quarterbacks, just got into the wrong situations with the wrong coaching staff. But this is a situation where they could endear themselves right now, and even if they bite the bullet a little bit by going with Mayfield, knowing that he's the future of this franchise, you endear yourselves back to your fan base and your city, and people become a little more tolerant of you developing your team, and I guess hanging on to Hugh Jackson as long as you're going to hang on to Hugh Jackson. But I will make a bold prediction here. I will make a very bold prediction. This is a tough one, but I'm going to say that Hugh Jackson is probably the first terminal coach in the NFL in the 2018-2019 season. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one.
See, I don't think he is because I think they're coming off of 1 win over 2 years. 5 or 6 wins saves his job, and this team has so much talent, they're going to get some wins.
That's the thing, Mike. You're right. This team does have talent. I mean, you're looking at the players they've got.
They do.
Is Des Bryant coming in or not? I guess, I didn't see.
Well, he's
warming
up
Bryant. I would
I don't
leave
think
him
he's
alone.
going to make an impact.
He's a cancer.
No, I think he causes more problems than he solves.
He's a cancer.
Exactly.
He was like bringing Vontae Davis into the Colts. He's a good player. Great defensive back, but just a cancer. I mean, he was just a problem to the team, and he was great in the community, well respected in the community of Indianapolis. But just to the team, he just was a me, myself, and I player. And I see Des Bryant is that same mentality. And right now, with the chemistry they've got on the field with the players, if they would let them surround either with Tyrod, because I think Tyrod is a good leader, or with Mayfield, just keep the talent you got and run with it right now. Develop that talent. You got good players. And you don't need to bring any more trouble into your program. You got enough of that with your coaching staff. So,
all right. My other question is this. If Greg Williams really did the Bounty Gate thing, why is he still a coach in the NFL?
I told you I'm not going to get into that debate on this show. Not today.
You can't get into that debate because you would lose it. Because, there's written, documented evidence. That's why none of the players ended up being suspended. They just suspended Williams and Payton.
Do you know how many
the NFL never released their documents?
Congress, Mike? Do you know how many?
Well, the fact that the NFL never would show the evidence, they just suspended him.
Of course,
Mike Cerullo,
the NFL, the biggest lying machine in the world, is not going to come out and say, yes, one of our coaches was paying players to take off the heads.
Really? They wouldn't? Because that's what they said, Steve.
They're going to bury.
They threw these guys under the bus. They suspended Williams. They suspended Payton. They suspended a bunch of players. But then when it was taken to court, they dropped it. And for the players to play, they went ahead and the coaches took their one-year suspensions. Mike Cerullo was the guy. He was the New Orleans Saints defensive assistant coach who got fired, and after he got fired in 2009, came out and said all this stuff was happening. Roger Goodell alleged to have 10,000 documents and 50 pages of evidence that was never brought out in a court case. So, the fact that none of these players were suspended, even after they were suspended, they were let go when the court case came, and it was just, these coaches are still coaching, tells me it was bullshit.
Yeah, and, I'll say this. One, you're dealing with the NFLPA, the Players Union, which the NFL doesn't want to rankle curves there. The coaches are easier to discipline because they're not part of the union. You got Ted Benson, who's one of the most respected coaches in the NFL, or owners in the NFL while he was alive. You got the greatest propaganda machine, one that Donald Trump models himself after, is the NFL. And I end it with this. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And there was a lot of smoke about this thing.
No. I'm sorry. This happens in every football locker room that's a professional football team. And to punish them by taking their coaches away is an absolute joke. I hate to tell you this, but football's very violent, and people are trying to hurt each other, especially at that level. And if you can knock out the other team's quarterback and win the game, you're going to do it.
And at the peak of his career, Michael Jordan just decided to retire from basketball and go try his hand at baseball.
Exactly. So now you know what I'm talking about. You just proved my point, because that was a complete smoke screen. This was a smoke screen.
It wasn't a smoke screen.
It was, because there was no truth to it. There was proven there was no truth to it. If there would have been truth to it, the players would have been suspended. The players couldn't be suspended because when they went to court, the NFL didn't produce the documents. They had no case. And you're right. The only reason the player or the coaches were suspended.
Tom Brady got suspended, and
what does that have to do with this? And that was complete BS too. The reason they suspended Tom Brady wasn't because of Deflategate. It's because he wouldn't give up his personal phone, and Roger Goodell got pissed off about it. Had nothing to do with Deflategate. Deflategate, you can go on YouTube. There's an MIT professor that shows how in cold weather the ball loses air.
Of course it does.
Just does. It just does. It was made up BS by the NFL. And, it may not have been made up, but once they go with a story, they're going to stick with it until the very end because they can. But, this disappeared. You go and find out how many players got suspended for doing this. There were none.
And, okay, I really don't want to debate this any farther, but the fact that once it started to go to court and go to trial, the NFL decides to drop it, it's because then it becomes public record. Then NFL has to open up their books and their records and to produce all the evidence that they have. They don't want to produce it.
Yeah.
They're just like, we'll just drop it. Because we don't want
because they didn't have it. Why would you drop that if you had the evidence?
The NFL doesn't want. They did not want this to become a public issue any more than it became.
No, the NFL made it a public issue. The NFL went public with it. The NFL are the ones that suspended the players. So you can't tell me they didn't want people to know about it because people already knew.
They suspended coaches.
Yeah, but they suspended players. Those suspensions were overturned when they couldn't produce the documentation to take down the players.
I would say, based on the history of the NFL, that they chose not to produce the documentation because they didn't want.
Well, I don't know why they would do that because it's the NFL and they had already told everybody what had happened.
Because the NFL tries to handle all of their own problems internally anyway, and thinks that they're a higher court than any other court in the land of the United States, and that their judge and jury is better one than those of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, so you're going to believe that the New Orleans Saints did this after just saying that.
I'm saying, Mike, that some form of it happened. I'm not saying it happens.
Some form of it happens with every team.
With a diagram of where to hit a quarterback in the head. I'm saying there was bounties. And you're right. It probably happens on every team. Somehow it just happened to get out about the same.
And I can tell you this. You know what? The only thing that was confirmed was the fact that Greg Williams said if you killed a head, the player's no good. And I can tell you this also. If you're a defensive football coach, you talk a lot of smack. And you say a lot of things that you don't really mean.
Right.
And I don't think Greg Williams really wanted to kill somebody's head. So I just think the guy gets a bad rap, but he is nuts, and that's why I like him. All right, so we're talking about nuts people. Let's talk about the Maryland football coach DJ Durkin was placed on administrative leave. We got a new coach now, Coach Canada at Maryland, and I'm sure Lucas likes that because his name's Coach Canada. Now, the president, everybody did come out and say that they did wrong, which is great. But the problem is this, with Mr. McNair, the young man that died, this was over 2 months ago. Why did it take 2 months for them to come out to try to cover their ass, Steve?
I think that they were trying to, keep it quiet, keep it under the wraps. I think the NCAA is involved in this to some extent, overseeing what's going on. To me, the big fault here lies up in the NCAA, and we'll get to that part later. But I think that, again, the problem with social media today is you don't really get a fair trial. It's ready, fire, aim with social media. It's not ready, aim, fire. It's ready, fire, aim. So this gets out, and you can't do damage control, and then everybody in the social world is convicting you, trying you before they convict you before they even try you. They don't give you a fair shot at it. I don't know if Maryland was trying to handle this internally or do what they do. You're always going to try and save face quietly before you have to go public with something, is my opinion. If I can get this, just keep it under the radar screen, we can deal with this privately. I think that it's noble that the president came out and took full admission of the responsibilities of the university and the coaching staff, but I think it was also to save his job. I think that he looked at all the other presidents who were losing their jobs over these incidents happening in college athletics now and said, my package is too strong. I'm just going to come out and throw some people under the bus that probably should have been thrown under the bus. And we'll talk about that a little bit further in this conversation. But I think there was, just an admission there, because it was the right thing to do, but also because it protected him and exonerated him a little bit from looking publicly like he's a tougher president and just going to say, yeah, we did it, take the high road. Mike, you and I have had this conversation a lot. We've had this conversation about Pete Rose. If Pete Rose had just come out and said, like you said, I think yesterday in the show, if he just come out and said, yeah, I bet on baseball, I screwed up, I take my punishment, and then he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame today, correct? We both agree to that, right?
Yes, but this is completely different. I mean, this is a young man dying because of incompetence.
Right, but it's the same thing as this president learns that by just taking the hit, taking the hit now, you're not going to be taking the hit for the rest of your life. As Pete Rose is taking the hit for the rest of his life.
But he should take the hit for the rest of his life,
right?
Not Pete Rose, but this guy.
I agree, but he's taking that off the plate for himself right now. Just coming out, and he's taking it off the plate of the university. We screwed up. We'll pay the money we owe the family. It's a tragedy. We're gonna get rid of the coach, which they've done. They're paying him his salary of $350,000. He walks away with no chance of prosecution or no criminal charges being filed against him, and $350,000. And he'll be coaching.
And for people that don't know what happened, Jordan McNair was a redshirt freshman. He collapsed May 29th after a conditioning test that consisted of 10 110-yard sprints during an off-season workout at the University of Maryland. He was hospitalized, died 2 weeks later from heat stroke at the University of Maryland Shock and Trauma Center. The law firm hired by McNair's family said it had corroborating evidence that suggests McNair was showing signs of heat stroke before he completed 110-yard sprints. He suffered a seizure, basically. They just dropped the ball all the way around. And the coach, DJ Durkin, should never coach again. The NCAA should have already came out and said DJ Durkin is banned forever. Because when you have a kid that dies, and, I mean, this is not something where you got to prove that DJ Durkin was at fault, because they just came out and said that he was. And, I mean, there was a toxic culture within the football program. The strength and conditioning coach, Rick Court, is a complete asshole and moron who should be in jail for the rest of his life for this.
He's not.
I know, but he should be.
Yeah, but
he should be in jail for the rest of his life. So should Durkin. They killed this kid because in the end, a lot of football coaches, more than 50%, are in it to make themselves look good, to soothe their own ego, and they don't care about the kids. And you know what? Do you blame them? Because you've got an NCAA that oversees them that is the same freaking way.
Yeah. And therein to me lies, again, we throw it always back to the NCAA, but then what the hell does the NCAA do other than partner up with advertisers, collect money, make profits off of TV networks? What do they do? Really, what do they do? Other than
they just get paid and they cover shit up.
They cover shit up. They make tons of money. They all live in nice neighborhoods in Indianapolis. They have a fancy freaking building that was built by the city, and they're a cash cow. And, this is a situation where the NCAA should be setting down. First off, I personally think every coach that coaches under an NCAA accredited football program should have a license. They should be licensed by the NCAA. And there's a course curriculum you've got to go through to be a coach. You have to work your way into that. It's not like Steve could just say UCLA fired Alford and they want to hire Risley today, which wouldn't happen. But, who am I? I mean, what do they know about me? But, UCLA, I met the president, led the AD. They love me. And we're going to make Risley the new head coach at UCLA. All right. You shouldn't do that. You should have to be accredited, licensed, know how to manage student-athletes, know how to handle academic standards. And there's a whole life that you got to get. And there's a screening process and a vetting process for all coaches in the NCAA. And you're right. And when they make a mistake like this, you take their license away. Then they can't coach in the NCAA anymore. That's it. You're done. We revoke your license. And see, that's number one. Number two, why does the NCAA not have practice guidelines? I looked up in the Journal of what's the exact name of this? The Journal of Athletic Training, partnering with the NIH, has conducted over 4 major studies in the last 2 years regarding heat exhaustion in college football players. And they've got hardcore data that shows wearing your helmet and pads alone is a disaster waiting to happen. Those helmets are like ovens. They don't ventilate well. They're hot. They're hot plastic. They trap the heat into your head, which was the basis foundation for starting heat exhaustion. But where's the NCAA in all this saying, based on this temperature level, you can only do these practice events? Yeah, you can only do this. You can only practice this period of time. You can only practice this time of the day.
Well, they do limit how much they can practice, but they don't limit and they can limit contact now, but they don't limit the water intake.
Yeah.
There should be water all over the place. A kid shouldn't have to wait till a water break if he needs a drink of water. That is absurd.
And my guess is this. Here's what I can see happening, because being a college athlete, and not say I was ever put in this position, because we always practice in an air-conditioned gym for the most part. But, yeah, they say, well, kids can get access to water whenever they want. And so, as Steve is struggling in practice today with heat exhaustion and getting the effects of it, and he's like, wants to go get water, I can hear the trainer or coach, yeah, you big chicken shit, go over there and get your water. Get yourself out of line. I got 10 guys in front of you that want to play.
And that's what this guy did at Maryland.
Yeah, and just shames this kid into not going and doing the proper hydration and things he needs to do. He doesn't deny him it. He doesn't deny it. He just shames him from doing it because he's a tough football coach. He's not a man of smart intelligence. Being a damn line coach in football has got to be the stupidest job in the world.
Being a what? I didn't hear what you said, but
yeah, I know. Good thing you did.
It's a joke.
What did you say? Something was the stupidest job in the world.
Being a line coach in football.
Yeah. But the point is this. I know you're trying to make light of a situation where somebody died, and now I'm being sarcastic to get you back. But when we look at this, it all comes back to the NCAA. And
right.
They just don't care about their athletes,
they don't
as
care.
Rashad McCants would call it. I mean, and the fans don't care. I mean, we had Rashad McCants on who explained, and it was proven exactly what happened in North Carolina. And when I posted that show on a North Carolina site, you would not believe the hate that he gets. I mean, he's called a Benedict Arnold. He's called a scumbag. He's called a loser. He's called all kind of racial things. It's just sickening that people are
and he's just telling the truth, Mike.
Yeah, people are so sick that who their team is more important than what their team has become.
Yeah. And again, I just want to clarify, I'm not making light of the situation of the young man died.
I know. I was just messing with you because you got me and I wasn't paying attention.
How absurd the situation gets to let incidents like that happen. The stupidity is not that a young man passed away on a football field doing something he loved to do. The stupidity is that there's people there on that field allowing that to happen and don't have more common sense and intelligence. But I can see it. I can just see this coach is ripping this kid a new butthole as he's struggling.
Was it Corey Stringer, Lucas, that died for the Vikings from this?
Yes, he did. And
about a decade ago.
It's this toxic culture of conformity that these coaches create where, you better not go get a drink of water, otherwise, you're labeled a wuss or something. You know what I'm saying? And that is just so terrible. And you're right, Mike. It goes back to your point. You need water stations everywhere. And if you want to go get a drink of water, the coach, to protect himself, has to, you shouldn't be able to say anything bad. You should go get a drink of water when you want. You should have all the water stations there.
But Lucas, you can. Lucas, no, you can. They don't deny him. They don't deny him the water. They just shame him into when you go get it.
Exactly.
They don't deny him the water. They're doing everything legally what the NCAA says they have to do, make water available at all times. I can just hear the vocabulary. I've been in sports all my life.
Well, if you read about this guy, that's what he was doing, Steve.
Yeah. With what?
I mean, that's what he was doing to the players. They were constantly yelling at him, calling them sissies and worse, because they were going to get a drink of water or taking a break. And it's sickening. And the fact that these guys aren't locked up today for this is mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's involuntary manslaughter. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I got to believe it's somewhere in the category of involuntary manslaughter. I mean, it's not intent to kill a player by any stretch of the imagination, but by taking the actions that were being taken, it's disregard for safety of human beings, which at some point becomes some form. I've watched enough crime scene CSI and things like that to know that somewhere there's legalities involved here, that you shouldn't just send him off packing with a $350,000 check and say we're not going to prosecute you.
And no criminal charges.
No criminal charges. Yeah. Until examples are made of these guys, this crap's going to go on. I guarantee it's going to happen today in practice, somewhere in this country. Some coach is going to.
The only place it won't happen now is Maryland, because you've got a microscope on it.
Right now, exactly. Yeah. That, and unfortunately, this kid that passed away is paying the price for making sure that microscope, doesn't go to other teams. It's on them now. And
that's what I mean. I mean, I don't care about an apology in this situation. I mean, it's great that somebody finally took responsibility, but number one, you're 2 months after. It's 2 months after.
Right.
Too little, too late.
Which basically makes it a cover-up, essentially. If you wait 2 months to take accountability for it, you're basically doing damage control at that point in time. The great thing to do is say, hey, we investigated this. They know within 2 days what happened and how it happened. And 2 days after it happened, said, we looked at this, we made mistakes, our coaching staff made mistakes. We're going to go ahead and tell you we're accountable for this right now, and we're going to take care of the situation and remedy it right now, not too much down the road when it becomes a public story. Just like with Ohio State and Urban Meyer and everything that was going on there. It's the same situation. And again, until the NCAA gets off their money-making butts and sits down and starts dealing with the necessity of what they should be doing, which is regulating, control, and proper environments for our student athletes, which is what their whole economic intake should be about, which was created by the universities of the United States to create this entity called the NCAA. They don't do their job. They think their job is to rake in money for the colleges and partner with sponsors to just continue to be a cash cow and put on great tournaments, which they do.
Well, and another one is the Larry Nassar thing. You had two more gymnasts who came out and, accused this Larry Nassar of something again. And the thing that blows my mind there is USA Gymnastics CEO Carrie Perry has never said a word about any of this. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mind-blowing.
That whole scenario out here. Well, that scenario was playing out at Ohio State again with the wrestling.
Yeah, with the wrestling.
And it's playing out here in California with USC and their doctor that was molesting athletes. I mean, that's into the hundreds now of number of athletes. So that president, the USC president, just resigned a couple of days ago. I mean, where is the NCAA? Why are they not clamping down on this stuff?
Because they don't care. As long as they're making their money, they don't care.
Right.
Now, I guarantee you this. If all of a sudden this affected how much money they made, they'd be all over it.
They'd be all over it. Which tends to make me want to think in the McCann situation, in the USC situation, those are cash cows. Those are cash cow programs for the NCAA. All of them are big TV draws. They're big-time programs. And they don't want to take those guys out of the mix if they don't have to. So are they overlooking things? Are they not paying enough attention? Are they hoping things get swept under the rug quietly? The breadth of depth of the Michigan State situation with Nassar, if somebody didn't know this was going on, is just it's unfathomable to me.
Yeah, they knew.
There's
always rumors if you've got that many people involved.
Well, it goes back to what I said. Where there's smoke, there's always fire. And if the smoke
but you know what? Sometimes where there's fire, which there wasn't with the New Orleans Saints Bounty Gate, but sometimes where there is smoke, people just turn their head and let the fire rage until it gets out of control, and then they try to fight it.
Well,
and that's what's happened here.
California, they call it a controlled burn. Sometimes they come out here and they just control the burn. They actually out here in California will start a fire to control the other fire. They'll start a fire around it to get it to burn out. And that's the mentality that the NCAA is using. They control burn these incidents like this, and they kind of like if we get the burn going around and buffer this thing, maybe we can contain it and keep it quiet and not lose potential sponsors. I don't know what to think.
No.
I'm probably not getting tickets to the NCAA championship game anytime in the near future, but whatever.
It's not like they'll listen to us. They're too busy spending their money, probably, owning an island or something. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, which means our show will start at noon today, by the way. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We will be back tomorrow, so make sure you check us out on Survive in Advance. You can also go to the Grueling Truth website and check out the CFL Weekly Pick'em show we did last night with myself, Brian Schmidt, four-time Grey Cup champion Robert Drummond. Also, Inside Boxing Weekly you can find with me, Jeremiah, and John was posted this morning, so you can find it on the Grueling Truth right now. Also, Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show with myself, Joe Kelly, special guest Ty Robbins. Talked about the Bengals win over the Chicago Bears, an upcoming game against the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, you can go and just type Survive in Advance in the search bar if you want and just listen to me, Stephen Lucas, 24/7, which a lot of people do now, I hear.
Lucas, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you hear a lot of self-promotion there about all his shows that he's promoting? Did he mention our golf show?
Hey, Lucas, did you hear the part where I didn't bring up the golf show yet because I got interrupted?
Yeah, but all I heard was you can listen to me, 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 you can listen to me on Survive in Advance, me and Stephen Lucas. And then, I'm thinking, okay, a lot of self-promotion going on here by our fearless
It'd be a damn shame if the golf show got canceled after just 2 weeks.
You can't cancel the golf show.
I can't?
No.
I could cancel it because you'd have to take it elsewhere, and then you'll have like 12 crickets listening to you. It'll be the Risley family, the Weese family, and 5 people that are sitting naked outside in Canada for some reason. Crazy people is basically what I'm telling you.
So we do have a golf show, Mike.
Do we have a golf show, Mike? You want to talk about
Risley, and it's every Monday.
Do we have a golf show? I believe we do, Steve. I believe that comes out every Monday evening or Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday evening. And you can hear Lucas and Steve. Well, sometimes you can hear Lucas, but you can hear Steve on the golf show every Tuesday.
No.
And
Lucas,
I would like.
Lucas, if I'm correct, Lucas, we do the show on Monday, don't we? It just doesn't get produced until Tuesday because our producer's too busy doing his own shows.
No, because your producer on Monday nights doesn't do that. Your producer is busy usually answering your phone calls as you bitch about why you're not as important as you want to be.
You're digging a hole, Mike.
I'm not digging a hole. You always say I'm digging a hole when the hole's already been dug and you're already buried. So, but your little boy Lucas will come to your defense and say, "Yeah, Steve, you're digging him a really big hole, Daddy."
Mike, we love you anyway. Despite all your flaws and faults, we love you, Mike.
What was that, Lucas?
That was a better imitation of me compared to what you did yesterday.
All I got to do is talk like I'm talking through my nose, and it'll sound just like you anyways, Lucas.
Wow.
There you go.
Man, he even acts like Donald Trump from time to time. Let's just make fun of the Canadians.
So what you're saying is someday I could be president. I'm good with that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up, even though Steve wants to keep talking so he can hear himself talk later on when he listens to this in the privacy of his own home. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. And if you want, you can go over to Steve's luxurious L.A. mansion and listen to the show personally with Steve. All you got to do is send us a message at Grueling Truth on Twitter or at Survive in Advance, and Steve will message you back with his personal phone number and his address so you can come over and listen to the show. He will then talk the entire time you try to listen to the show and tell you how awesome he was. But for Likas Weese, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.